Good evening, class, and good evening, Dr. Simmons. The topic that I've chosen for my final research paper is not a pleasant subject to discuss, but it is one that I feel is extremely important, because it not only covers matters of how the people of our nation once reacted to fears both of domestic and international affairs, it also covers how they could potentially react to such matters in the future, as could any group of people. The topic that I've chosen to discuss is the rise and fall of the second incarnation of the Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s. The second incarnation of the Klan was started by a man named Colonel William Simmons in the year 1915, who was inspired by the racist propaganda film Birth of a Nation made by D.W. Griffith. The Ku Klux Klan, the second incarnation after it was established, very quickly rose to multiple tens of thousands of members, and in the middle of the 1920s, it is believed by modern historians that they had anywhere from 2.5 to 4 million members. At the high point of their power, they marched on Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C., a public demonstration that would today draw cries of shock and horror, but in that time, it was completely accepted by the mainstream. The Ku Klux Klan of the mid-1920s was inspired not just by hatred of black people, of black Americans, though that was a part of it. It was inspired heavily by fears of immigrants from Eastern and Southern Europe. People in that time period were angry because America was rapidly industrializing, and in doing so was bringing over many people who had come to search for a better life. Many people here were out of jobs in a time when our country as well as the world was facing recession in the aftermath of World War I. And many people blamed the people who were coming here from Europe. Many of these people were Catholics, many of them were Jews, and many of them were alcohol drinkers. This was a time of prohibition where, while there were many Americans who were certainly against prohibition, there were also many who supported it on moral grounds. And Eastern and Southern Europeans were often stereotyped as having a saloon culture and being heavy drinkers. In addition to this, many were afraid of Catholics because they feared that Catholics would be loyal to the Pope in Europe, and that they would undermine American democracy and separation of church and state. Many of them were also skeptical of the Jews who were coming here in numbers because they believed that Jews were responsible for banking conspiracies, they believed that Jews were responsible for Wall Street banking conspiracies. It was these fears that led to the Klan swelling to the numbers it did and to the level of acceptance that it did, and this caused them to become so bold that they were openly committing acts of horrifying vigilantism, terror, and outright murder in our streets. The Klan declined near the end of the 1920s, when people became cognizant of their horrible crimes. Many people had joined because they were seeking prestige and popularity in this exclusive organization, but later on they left when they realized that it wasn't what they thought it was. The Klan also declined in popularity because many of the fears that they piggybacked on ended up not coming true. They said that Catholics and Jews and general European immigrants would subvert our society and cause chaos, and they didn't. Economic conditions in America were briefly picking up before the Great Depression in 1928, which also caused them to decline in their popularity. One particularly important incident was the trial of a local Klan's leader for the rape and murder of a girl in Indiana. This caused much of their membership to decline overnight, and was a heavy blow to them in a time when they were already slowly declining. I feel that the Klan is an important matter to discuss because this was a time when we had members of an openly racist, murderous hate group marching on our streets, just openly talking about wanting to enter into the government. And in numerous states, not just southern states, but all over the world, the Klan was heavily influential in government to the point that politicians needed to appeal to them to get their vote. In particular, Presidents Warren G. Harding and Harry Truman were both members of the Klan at points in their lives. This was a time when these people openly had a heavy hand in our government and had a say in our foreign policy and had a say in our domestic policies, and not to mention foreign policy, since they were opposed to us joining the League of Nations. I feel that this is important not just to our national history but to our world history, as these people not only were influenced by fears of the outside world, but had a heavy hand in our government and potentially could have been in charge of us, and this could have potentially affected our relationship with the entire world. I feel that I think it's important for us to discuss this today because this kind of mirrors some of the stuff we're seeing with people becoming more scared of the world being interconnected, people becoming scared that things that they believe in and value are being eroded by moral degeneracy, and you see that people are willing to become violent in the name of claiming this country back for what they believe in. For one example, with the January 6th insurrection or the Charlottesville attack, we need to keep in mind that fear of the world and fear of what's happening in our country is no reason to allow our animal natures to take over, and it's no reason to allow violence and anti-democratic actions to take control of our governance and our society. This country was founded on the idea that we all need to cooperate with each other, and we need to be able to hear each other out and allow each other a seat at the table, even if we disagree with each other. And the rise of the Second Klan in the 1920s reflected a time when people were looking out at the world, looking at stuff that was happening in our country, and deciding that they just didn't want to do that.